So, welcome everyone to the Australian Federation of Medical Women's President's Chat. My name's Dr. Sarah Coll. I'm an orthopaedic surgeon based in Far North Queensland, and I'm the current president of the Australian Federation of Medical Women. This is one of a series of chats we're having with very inspiring women who have been doing things that have perhaps been a little bit underappreciated, in my opinion. So therefore, I would like to introduce Dr. Linny Phuong, who is a paediatric infectious diseases physician who holds current appointments at the Royal Children's Hospital, Cabrini Health and Murdoch Children's Research Institute. She is an active researcher in paediatric infections with a special interest in streptococcal disease, Kawasaki disease and vaccine safety. She is also a PhD candidate with the University of Melbourne studying invasive pneumococcal disease. Her studies are supported by scholarship from the University of Melbourne, the Royal Australian College of Physicians, and MCRI. Other professional roles include her involvement as a guest expert for infections on the Safer Care Victoria with the Consultative Council on Obstetric and Paediatric Mortality and Morbidity. Outside of medicine, and the reason why we're here today, is that Linny is the founder and board director of an award-winning health promotion charity, the Water Well Project, which provides free, culturally sensitive health education to communities from migrant, refugee and asylum seeker backgrounds. I couldn't say that any better, so I had to use someone else's. So please, Linny, tell us everything.
Thanks, Sarah, for that introduction. And so I firstly would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're all meeting upon tonight and recognise their contributions to land, spirit, and the tapestry of multiculturalism that exists. Because I think that it's so important that we recognise that. It's very important to me. Anyway, firstly, I am going to start tonight by talking through, I guess, my journey, a little bit about my leadership journey, a little bit about the Waterwell Project and some of the other sort of passion projects that I've been involved with. And I guess sort of the reason why, Sarah, I agreed to this is because I think a lot of people within medicine feel like medicine is sort of everything about them, and I feel for me that being a doctor is just part of what I do. I'm so proud of being a doctor, but also I feel like it's the other things as well, and being a doctor and being within medicine kind of offers you these opportunities that perhaps people sort of aren't aware of. So a little bit sort of a not so traditional path in some ways. So I'm going to start by telling you guys a little bit about my parents. So these are my parents. They were 19 and 20 years of age. This is them outside the Housing Commission flats in Richmond. And I guess, the year was 1979. My grandparents, had paid these people smugglers, and put them on a boat because there was a civil war going on. My dad was the youngest of 13 children. My mum was the middle of 9 children. And they were seeing what was going on. My dad's oldest brother had died at war. People around them obviously were dying just with the civil war going on. And so my dad, absolutely is adamant that this was his boat. We found this on Google Images and he's like, that is it. That's boat 156. And it's 21 by 3 meters long. And, I was sitting around about here and this is what it was. And so when I speak to my parents about, being a Vietnamese boat person, my dad says, for 4 days and 3 nights, essentially they journeyed on this boat and ended up in Malaysia on a refugee camp. And I think sort of the short version is that very fortunately a United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees came from Australia, and they offered my parents a spot to come to Australia because at the time they were taking childless couples and unmarried women. So my parents, as well as my dad's 3 sisters, came to Australia, and so they got on a plane for the first time in their lives, and they came to Australia and they made their lives here. And so for them, a couple of things happened, and I think this really sort of impacts why sort of my sisters and I are the ways that we are, and some of the values that they instilled in us. They had, when they arrived in Australia, firstly, they had Medicare rights. Secondly, it was the time of the Fraser government, and everybody knows about the Vietnamese boat refugees and the Fraser government, and how godlike he was for them. They got access to education in that they learned the English language. They had work rights. So they both worked factory jobs and tried to earn as much money as possible so that they could move out of the Housing Commission flat and be more independent and then raise a family. And so as part of that, somehow again, they were paired with these two amazing families from the Salvos, who one family took them around Melbourne, showed them the trams, showed them the trains, showed them, where to get fresh fruit and veggies, kind of literally navigated them and took them on these outings. And, even as a young child, when I was born, they took us to the zoo and they did all these amazing things. And this second family were not well off, and they saved up and bought my parents a heater. And my parents still have this heater, really old bar heater. But to them, it was everything, because, these housing commission flats were freezing cold. It was their generosity. And so I guess the lesson for us was, so this is my sisters and I growing up, and this is our first home that my parents saved up for in Blackburn South. They taught us two lessons. One was to be grateful and to give back to society, because they were so grateful that the Australian government had picked them and they, were able to start a new life. And the second was, because they'd given up so much and they hadn't had the opportunities, the second lesson was to get a good education and be able to use that to give back. And so this is me in the middle and my two younger sisters. And, as kind of the children of refugee parents, we learnt these lessons, and this was kind of instilled in us from very young. As a result, their parenting was super strict. It was, all about education. There were no sleepovers, there were no camps, there were no boyfriends, all those things. And really for us, it was about, getting that education. And so, our comeback to that was essentially, between us, we have 5 bachelor degrees, 2 diplomas, 3 masters, and a PhD on the way. So that was us back to them. That was our rebuttal to them. And, my two sisters, they both work in international aid. They've worked in countries like Bangladesh, Haiti, Jordan, Mongolia, Nepal, the Philippines, Tajikistan, Switzerland, Thailand, and Vietnam. So, and they've worked for some big organizations, the World Health Organization, the World Food Program, the United Nations, et cetera, et cetera. So for my parents, they were obviously quite proud of that. And I feel like I am probably the boring one of the three of them. And, I pretty much stay put. So this is me. So I'm going to present my little timeline of how I've kind of gotten to where I've gotten today, a little bit sort of a career journey. But I actually, at the end, I'm going to declare up front, this is the slide that I call my imposter syndrome slide. And you'll see as it unfolds why I've done that. So when I finished high school, I was quite young. I was 16 at the time. I was obviously a little bit naive. I just, I wanted to do medicine. That's all I wanted to do. And I got an interview for Monash and I flaked. I wanted it so much that I couldn't even answer the question about what my name was and why I wanted to do medicine. And it was something that I'd wanted to do since I was a young child. So it just, anyway, so I got into pharmacy. I did really well. I graduated with honors. And then I kind of got a little bit restless. So I applied for a Master of Applied Commerce with a major in marketing, and that sounds really odd. And I've graded out because after a term, I ended up withdrawing because it wasn't quite right. But it is forever on my academic record, and it, the perfectionist in me, it kills me. I then gone into postgraduate medicine, which was everything sort of that I wanted. And I think, you know, the blessing in disguise was that because I'd worked as a pharmacist, I had met my husband during that time. And he's not a pharmacist, but I'd met him in one of my jobs. So I think that was kind of the lesson in that. So upon sort of doing medicine, became a med student, I ended up doing an internship at Austin Northern, which was combined at the time. And so embarked on this junior doctor journey. I initially thought, I went into med school thinking I was going to be a pediatrician. But when I did my internship, I loved it so much. Like the Austin and the Northern doctors are like, they were young, they were cool, they were, you know, like it just made it seem like what I wanted to do. And I guess at the time I thought maybe it's just the Austin and Northern that I like. So I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go to the Alfred. So I went to the Alfred and did an adult year and thought, holy crap, like I can't do any more geriatrics. It's just not me. And so the Alfred and like the beautiful director of training at the time was so lovely. She essentially said to me, like, what's holding you back from getting ready for the exams? Like, and you know, they get you ready for physician exams really early at the Alfred.
Really?
And I, you know, I'm not averse to study at all. Absolutely not. And so what ended up happening was that I, you know, I spoke to the director of training and she said to me, look, why don't you go try pediatrics for a year? And if you don't like it, just come back. And so that's what I did. I went and did pediatrics. I started off as a registrar at the Women's. So I got an unaccredited pediatric role there as a neonatal registrar. And at that time, that was acceptable. I started a diploma in child health because I thought, gosh, if I'm going to get a JRMO position at the Children's, I better qualify myself for that. And then I got onto the Children's program, and so did, you know, my junior years through the Children's and Monash Children's, and passed my exams first time, got onto specialty training, and then embarked on pediatric infectious diseases. Again, because I'd felt like I'd missed out on going overseas, because, you know, my plan was always to go overseas, do, you know, MSF, go and do a fellowship somewhere. I felt like I had to get some other experience. So I actually went back to the Austin and did an adult term in infectious diseases. One, it was good because it was great exposure to another team and, you know, another way of thinking. But holy crap, it was so incredibly hard, and adult infectious diseases is nothing like pediatric infectious diseases. So it was like we were speaking another language, but it was a fantastic experience for me. I applied for a Master of Public Health, I should mention, during my advanced training, which was silly, but also a good thing to do. And I was pregnant. So I was doing my Austin adult ID term, and I was quite pregnant, and yeah, I got through it, and then I got my fellowship. And so, you know, I got my pediatric ID fellowship, and that was in the middle of COVID. So I think that was January 2021. And so, you know, that, you know, we talk about finishing your advanced training and getting your letters and then looking for a job. Well, I had no issues getting a job. These were all my jobs. I had 1.2 FTE worth of work, and I thought, this is amazing. Also, oh my God, I had a young baby. And I thought, I'm not experiencing anything that the others are experiencing when they get their letters, because look at all the jobs. Like, I could do public health, I could do infectious diseases. There was an abundance of work available. And obviously the money eventually dried up. And so, you know, I've reduced that down to a few appointments at Cabrini and some casual work at RCH, and sort of just finished up at SafeFix. So yeah, that was quite interesting. And obviously I started a private practice as well in the middle of the pandemic. Again, like, you know, what am I doing? I'm doing infectious disease. What should I do? I should do a PhD. So this looks like a very busy slide, and it looks like, you know, craziness on a on a slide, but that essentially is me sort of justifying kind of why I did what I did. During that time, so I should mention the Waterwell project. So I started the Waterwell project, which I'll talk about over the next couple of slides, as a first year intern. And so the reason for that is because, firstly, my parents' refugee background, I obviously had a passion to improve, I guess, healthcare for people like them. And what I was seeing at the Austin and the Northern were people like my parents. I was seeing them in emergency. I was seeing them on the wards. I was seeing a lot of people who were presenting with very preventable conditions. And I think through my childhood, I'd been to the doctor enough times with my parents, and unfortunately been that child interpreter, and really kind of seen the value in health education. I think also having worked as a pharmacist during my medical student years, so I was working as a qualified pharmacist, I also saw the impact of working in community and the value that brought. And so I think the Waterwell project was kind of a marrying of all of those things. It was the community pharmacy background, it was, my interest in public health, and my passion for improving health literacy and health education, and obviously that refugee background. So a little bit about our organisation. So our vision and mission are really around the fact that we want people to have equitable access to health. And what I mean by that is that not about red carpet treatment for people from refugee, asylum seeker backgrounds. It's that, the everyday Australian has access to an amazing sort of array of healthcare resources. But if you're not from the country and you don't speak the language, it's bloody hard to navigate. And so the Waterwell project really is about getting everyone on the same page. So what we do is we try and improve physical and mental well-being of people by improving their health literacy. And that literally just translates to, we give health education. So we go out into the community and we literally get invited into their spaces in community. So it's churches and playgroups and English language classes, and we talk to them and literally have a conversation with them about health topics, and they request what they want to talk about as well. So we connect with community partners. We're in New South Wales, Tasmania, and Victoria, and to date we've delivered over 1,700 sessions to over 23,000 participants, and we feel that has a flow-on effect. I think every one person who's in our session probably tells at least 5 people. And so we're hoping it has, a broader impact than that. Some of the sort of recognition that we have received along the way, I think, is testament to, our volunteers and the work that they have contributed, and hopefully the impact that we're having in the community. I think some of the highlights were, we were presented with a finalist award at Parliament House in front of the Prime Minister at the time, which was incredible. We received a Victorian Multicultural Health Award, which was great. And then similarly, last year we received a Victorian Public Healthcare Award. So I think, I think it all kind of helps in terms of shedding a light on what we're doing. And certainly we still come across communities who have never heard of us, or services that haven't heard of us as well. So that's kind of a lesson for us in terms of learning how we market ourselves and how we work with people in the community and how we become financially sustainable, because we went from 1 staff member pre-COVID to 7 staff members now, including a CEO. And so that sustainability piece is so important, particularly as we increase our reach and continue to grow. As a result of Waterwell, I think there's been a lot of different things that I've been privileged to be involved with. So this picture on the left is the Navigating Health Group. So we got invited up to Parliament House with the late Peter Murphy, and we talked about navigating healthcare systems and how we could work together to break down the silos within healthcare and hopefully improve healthcare, not just for refugees, asylum seekers, but for all the diverse communities within Australia. So that was an amazing opportunity. And we continue to sort of work on that in the background. This is my board and our CEO at the Waterwell project. And this is our big team on our little team event, which was great. And, they're an amazing group of people who are quite diverse. I think one of the lessons was that, very early on, we started off as an organisation with doctors, and it was just doctors volunteering, and that expanded very quickly to nurses and allied health. our board sort of, we have lawyers, we've got HR person, we've got comms people, we have government people. So like we have that sort of diverse skill set as well, which is fantastic. And I'm a big believer in having people who are smarter than I am in the room. And this is the smart group of people. So it's been fantastic. The other thing as part of Waterwell is I got invited to speak on ABC News Breakfast as I essentially got interviewed about the inequities in healthcare, with, again, sort of thinking about migrant, refugee, asylum seeker communities, and that's kind of landed me a monthly spot on ABC News Breakfast, which is, again, something totally unexpected and not something that I would ever sort of think that I would ever be doing. So that's been amazing, and that's been, again, like part of that advocacy piece. And so as a result of Waterwell, I think, navigating health's been amazing. I've been sort of working with the hospitals as well to improve systems to make sure that they are culturally, culturally diverse, but also culturally competent and sort of cater to these different audiences. Some of the other things that I'm juggling, I'm doing a PhD. So this is my confirmation meeting last year. I don't know that I've progressed my PhD that much further beyond that. This is my daughter playing the violin, of course, watching the ABC Top 100 classics, because for some reason she is a funny, odd kid like me and loves classical music. And
Wow.
this is my little icon for my private practice, which I'll tell you about in a second as well. So these are the other things. So as a result of kind of, I think, ABC, suddenly I was kind of cast into this media world. So I was working for SAFIC, which is vaccine education, and MVEC are associated with that group. And so I did a podcast interview around vaccines. Soon to be released, there'll be an AMA podcast where I interview amazing guests, and we talk about leadership topics, which has been a really, really fun experience. This is a podcast that was released today. So I'm working with the World Society of Infectious Diseases to do a podcast for our international colleagues, talking about syndromic testing in infectious diseases. I got invited to do a specific ABC segment on winter infections, which I thought was pretty cool because, yay, they get to like ask me questions about something I know as opposed to the daily news. And then I recently did the Royal Children's Hospital videos for the flu vaccine, and that was kind of common questions based on the national poll, which was a lot of fun as well. These are just two picks, actually. I'm not sure what happened there, but this is the Williamson Community Leadership Program that I'm doing this year, which has been incredible because it's a diverse group of people. So there's 40 people, all from different backgrounds. I'm the only doctor in the group, which is amazing because, again, I like learning from people with different backgrounds. And then this is the Monash MICRE program, which was a women's leadership program within healthcare. And again, like, it was just fantastic to sort of hear from other people and hear what challenges people had within healthcare and learn from everyone else. This is my last slide. So this is an opinion piece I wrote for Missing Perspectives, and there's a QR code if you'd like to have a read. But like, essentially I write about being an introvert. And so maybe with all of those slides and the media stuff that I'm doing, perhaps it's not clear that I'm an introvert, but certainly I am. And I essentially wrote about what it is like to be an introvert in the healthcare system. So I would invite you to have a read and let me know what you think. They are some of the channels that I'm on below, but I'm going to stop sharing, Sarah, and invite questions if that's all right.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I apologize again for the delay in my responses. Obviously, I'm happy to start off some questions. And I hate asking this question, so I'm going to start with a different question first. And this might sound a little pointed. How you said you had some doctors involved in your organisation, and presumably they were working as volunteers. And this will now sound very pointed. How do you get doctors to volunteer their time?
Well, first, okay. So I'll start with the fact that hi everyone. Love
They're all
seeing some
just popping
familiar
up
faces
little
around the room.
faces.
I know, it's fantastic. Um, so firstly, I think, obviously doctors do what they do because they want to contribute and help. Like that's why we enter the profession. And
Mm.
so to begin with, the group of doctors that I had were my friends, and literally it was people who went to the same global health things that I did, and it was very easy to get
Mm.
people on board. And so that was our little circle to begin with. And then, obviously it wasn't sustainable. Like there were so many things that we had to do. We had zero money. We discovered that it was $180 for an interpreter for 35 minutes.
Yeah.
And we obviously we're
As
going to
opposed
need
to free
interpreters.
for medical treatment, which is, it's free. Yeah.
Well, that's right. Exactly. That's right. So we had to somehow sort that out. And we thought the solution, hi, Rachel, we thought the solution would be to run a movie fundraiser. So we raised $1,000. Again, we knew that wasn't going to work. And that's where, it became all about getting the smart people in the room. Like we got lawyers on board, we got DGR status so that we could accept donations. And then suddenly we were off. Like we could finally go for the grants and get some funds behind us so that we could expand and do what we wanted to do. But yeah, in terms of your
Mm.
question though, Sarah, yeah, very pointed. But I think, doctors, as time poor as we are, like we want to do it to help. And I think,
Yeah.
volunteering your time to use your skills and your knowledge is I think it's a nice kind of volunteering activity. Like I started off as a med student volunteering in the RCH emergency department serving cups of tea. And
Mm.
that was,
Mm.
I loved that. Like and that is valuable, but also, it's kind of nice to go to that next level and be able to use the knowledge that you have.
Do you have nurse navigators in Victoria, or is that a thing?
Not yet.
Do
I
you know
think
what
they're
I'm
trying
talking
to
about?
introduce it at the moment. Yeah, I do. At Peter Mac. It's definitely a lot more established in Queensland. And I think
Right.
Queensland's the model for Victoria at the moment, as per other states. But yeah, nurse navigators are incredible, and I think they would add enormous value.
Um, and then I hate people asking this question, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Um, I
Okay.
can timeline, and I can see there's a baby in there, and there appears to be a husband as well. And I hate asking how do you find the time. What I'm trying to really ask is there a trick or a secret or a tip that you've got whereby you actually get the stuff done, without sleep
Mm.
deprivation or going mad or never interacting with people socially? What do you have any advice for us about how to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And a few people in the room here will know that if I ever get asked to do a work-life balance talk,
Yeah.
it's not my sort of talk. I think that what I do, Sarah, and this is my sort of version of balance, is that I say yes to the things that bring me joy. And that sounds really
Mm,
cliched. And
mm,
I say yes to things that I know will work for me. I do have a lot of help in that my husband is an amazingly
mm,
supportive partner. He's non-medical. He's got a little bit more wriggle room, so I think that helps.
mm,
But I also, in terms of family life, I don't know, I've got this big thing about wanting to be a present parent, and that for me is a priority. So the second my daughter is home, in normal circumstances, it's tools
mm,
down. Like, we pick her up,
mm.
and she does long hours. So she starts at 8:30 and we put her in extended care in kindergarten. We pick her up at 5. But 5 o'clock onwards, we're hers until she goes to bed. So I think, the other things that I do are I schedule things in. So I schedule in my exercise. I schedule in at least one friend catch up a week. And that's
Mm.
just
Wow.
because I've got like my friends keep me nurtured. There's no way that
Mm,
I would be able to keep doing what I'm doing without them. And I see my family quite often. I see, we see our in-laws at least once a fortnight. I see my parents at least once a week. Um, yeah, like I think I've got a great network around me, but also we've got a cleaner. We have, I don't know. I think
so
there are a
so the
few
other
hacks,
thing,
but certainly scheduling is a big deal to me.
yeah, Same. So when you say yes to things that bring you joy, what do you say no to? How do you know where no is?
Yeah. No is, and oh God, it's so hard to say no initially. And at the start, you say yes to everything.
Mm.
But I think it's about saying no to things that, one, aren't going to further my career, going to take too much time, that I feel like someone could do better. Um, and I'm a really big advocate for pushing other people forward. And so if I say
Mm.
no, I will say, no, I can't do that, but I think this person could. So I think that's something that I operate by. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
no,
like that one.
there's certainly other things that I say no to, like things that make me uncomfortable. I
Mm.
got invited today to go on Channel 7 News and talk about flu encephalopathy. And I thought, no, no, I'm not ready for that.
What do you mean?
I'm not ready for reactive media. I don't know. I
Ah,
just it's too, like, obviously I don't know whether there is going to be a case that they were going to talk about, or um yeah, I think I was a little bit nervous and I didn't feel like I had the bandwidth, and so I said no, but I put someone else forward.
yeah, I like that. I like that. You probably could do it. You'd nearly be able to do it, but there's
Yeah,
someone
I
over
mean,
here that
I could do it if
might
I wanted
excel.
to.
Mm, mm. So I've got a
Exactly.
question
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
question. Apologize for this delay. Sorry. I
Yeah.
have a question in the chat.
No, I can see
Is
the question.
Go on. Can you answer that question?
Yeah, so ACT. Yeah, so not in ACT at the moment, Marjorie, but we are in New South Wales. We have been asked previously to go to WA, Northern Territory, and South Australia. And because we don't have sustainable funding, like, we've had to be really careful about what we say yes and no to. We really want to optimize what we're doing in the 3 states before we go elsewhere. But also, if someone gave us a large injection of money, then we probably could. But we want to be able to do
Mm.
things well. And we talk about, I said before, we've done 1,700 sessions. We easily could have done 3,000 sessions by now, but it's never been about the numbers.
Laura,
I
can
can
you
see Laura has a question. Laura's one of
unmute?
our med
Un-
students in my professional
awesome.
prac group.
Hello.
Hello.
In awe, as always. I had a question that was sort of very related to something that's already been asked, but it's more to do with not how do you find the time, but how do you have the emotional energy? Like, when I was looking at that timeline, I was
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, juggling all of that. Like, it's hard enough to imagine how to fit that into a day.
Yeah.
But just with, like, me looking at my own sort of future career and just the idea of sort of juggling being a junior doctor, trying to get into a program that's, becoming more and more narrow, and the idea of sort of going off the beaten path, putting lots of emotional energy into things that are voluntary, sort of, even no matter how much I care about them, sounds like impossible, emotionally impossible.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
It does
So
make sense.
how have you not lost your energy? Answer the question, but
This is a good question. I think, God, Laura, I don't even know whether I've got a proper answer to this. I feel like throughout med school, I was always the busy one who was involved in multiple committees. Like, I was on VMWS, I was on the AMA Doctors in Training Committee, I was on UMS. So I was doing all of those things, Teddy Bear Hospital even. I think
we're at
that
Chad's on Saturday morning.
Chatty's helping us out, exactly. But I was always involved in lots of things, and I think, like, and none of it was ever about CV building. It was because I enjoyed them. Like, I really like being on committees. I think I just love learning. Like, I'm just, obviously a little bit of a nerd like that. But yeah,
But
I
then how
totally,
does that
like, I get what you're saying.
how does that work with being an introvert when you like being on committees? Can you just justify that? Because I certainly understand it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm introverted, which means that I like to, I have to go and, spend time with myself. And I get really, I energize by like winding down on my own. And that's sort of, one of the traits, but it doesn't mean that I won't sit in a room and, passionately talk about something because, I'm there to do that function. I don't know. It's not like none of these things are exhausting, because certainly I will walk off ABC like I did on Monday and on Tuesday, and I was shaking like a leaf, and the rest of the day I was exhausted. So yeah, I think I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
That's a good one.
I think
like
about,
that.
like, I listen to the things that you're doing, and I think about the opportunities that, I've sort of had. And it's like, I can imagine being energized by them and really enjoying them, but it's almost like I can't even fathom sort of like feeling on top of the baseline work
Yeah.
as a med student, let alone as a doctor. So it's like the idea of adding something on top.
Yeah.
Do you feel like really stable as a baseline in terms of your like basic medical work? And your training? Did you always the whole time feel like quite stable and like you had a pathway, or did you feel like it was insecure?
No way. I feel like I've been insecure all my life. But I think that's probably what I got used to, Laura. I don't think that I see what you're saying though. Like if you've got a stable foundation, then you can just pack stuff onto like one thing onto another. But I don't think that was ever the case. And like, by the way, I'm sitting here shaking, so I'm sitting on my hands. So,
so feeling
an
secure to
FYI.
do it anyway is the advice.
Exactly.
So
Just like a roller coaster.
yeah, I think you get used to being on that unstable platform of not being on top of things, and then you're also on in an unstable situation where you recover when you're alone, as an introvert. So you're never quite in your comfort zone, so you don't sort of expect that. You don't expect to be comfortable.
Well, that's
and
why
so then it's easy to extend
my
yourself.
recharge is with like family and friends. Yeah. My recharge is like family and friends, exercising. I just being with my daughter. Yeah, I don't. It is funny. Like I definitely, I put myself like with Waterwell Project. I think it's kind of forced me to be a certain way, because when I first started the Waterwell Project, there was no way I wanted to get up on a stage and talk about what we did. And I think, over the years, like it's been 14 years now, I think I'm used to talking about the Waterwell Project, which makes it, a hell of a lot easier now. But I'm still so nervous, like ridiculously nervous. Rachel, I think, was at our induction last night, and 14 years, like I do like 3 or 4 intakes of new volunteers a year, and I was still nervous yesterday. So I just I don't know, it's kind of, I feel like it's almost my process in some ways. And it's not that I'm not a perfectionist either. So I think that's the part of your question, Sarah, part of the answer to your question about what you say no to. Like I want to do a really good job at everything that I decide to commit to. And so if I don't think that I'm going to do as close to 100% as I can, then I don't do it.
Go on, Latha. You want to ask a question?
Hi.
Hi, Linny.
Hello.
And hello to everyone who I haven't met before. I just had a comment and then a question for Linny. My comment was towards Laura. Nobody else apart from Linny knows who I am. I'm a registrar kind of halfway through my training, just starting my advanced training. And so Laura Medical School is not very far away in my mind. So I guess I wanted to say that in terms of doing things, I think there's a lot of ebbs and flows in terms of energy and how much you can actually give at any given time. And that's normal. And I think everyone experiences part of that during not just medical school, but after, when they're training as a junior doctor, and then even after. Like the past 18 months, a lot of my energy just went towards studying for all my exams. And so I wasn't able to give a lot to all the other pursuits and interests that I had in my life. And so it's just about kind of juggling those balls, but it changes. And now that the exams are behind me, I feel like, oh, life is like new again, and I can do all these things, like join the Zoom, for instance. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that emotional bandwidth can ebb and flow with time. And I think just expecting that will happen is probably what everyone feels to some extent.
I like that.
Linny, my question was, around, so obviously you started the Waterwell Project as an intern, and I'm also a volunteer with the Waterwell Project. And it's remarkable how much you and your team have achieved all this time. As a medical woman who started the project, obviously in medicine, there's not a lot that you learn about leadership and, finance and governance and all of these things. How did you navigate that as a junior doctor, and what did you do to kind of find your feet? I know you pulled in all these people with all these immense talent, but I think that the medical world is a silo in itself, and we tend to attract each other, and we don't have any new skills. And so my question is twofold, I guess. Did you do other things to kind of learn in your own way? You obviously love learning. Like, were there courses that you did, or was it just you kind of fell in the right way because you met people?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And it's funny, like every time someone asks me this question, I have to think back to what we did, because it feels like so long ago. But you're exactly right. And going through medical school does not prepare you for definitely starting any sort of business, whether it's private practice or, an NGO. What we did, like, I had to learn how to balance books. I had to learn social media. I had to learn marketing. I had to learn governance. I did an AICD course at one stage, the Australian Institute of Company Directors. So I did that probably a year in or 2 years in. And then I literally relied on my network of people. Like, I had a stack of people who had governance experience. I had, my husband, who was sort of very, sort of well-versed in terms of the marketing world. And like, we kind of, were able to sort of shuffle things along a little bit. But then it was, 3 years in, like, we had to get the diverse board, and we had to get, the lawyers and the accountants and that to actually join our team. But yeah, I think definitely we don't get taught those skills. And yeah, you learn very quickly, because, oh my God, like, balancing a ledger, like, I find it quite remarkable that we don't get taught how to do that, because I just don't think I'd be able to survive without it now. I feel like the American system does it quite well, though. I feel like they get a lot more leadership training, and they kind of get the skills outside of medicine as well to be able to cultivate their careers properly. I don't know that we get that. But yeah, certainly I've done lots of leadership programs over the years. The Monash one was one. I did the Harvard Women in Leadership course a couple of years ago during the pandemic. I thought that was amazing as well. But yeah, no, I think it's really hard starting off. I think, yeah, the network's really important. Love that question, though. I really like your answer as well, just around the ebbs and flows. Like, Laura, honestly, if I put in all the little breaks of what I did on that timeline, there'd be like lots of breaks. So, when I was doing my advanced training in infectious diseases, I probably had the toughest year that I'd ever had. When I was the ID fellow at the Royal Children's, there was one fellow, and that was me. Now there are 3 fellows, just to give you that perspective. And so I had to put my Master of Public Health on hold for 6 months. I was only doing 2 subjects at a time, and I took 8 years to complete it, compared to my sister, who did it full time and finished it in 3. So that gives you a little bit of perspective there around kind of the juggle. But yeah, I kind of, again, like, I think if you've got the right people around you, like, you kind of lean on each other. So, I would say I'm out for like the next 2 months while I focus on this, and someone else would step up and do something. And, yeah, I think that's really important. I love that. I love Brenda said okay by me.
On the not having the not being taught those skills in medical school, what did starting a private practice involve?
Yeah, I think that's a whole nother talk on its own. We could talk about that in one of our tubes one day. Yeah,
I could definitely give you a whole talk on every mistake that you could possibly make. I have that talk because we did everything wrong. Everything. Heartbroken. Fair work. Just, lawyers, people trying to, everything you could possibly think of. It happened. But, how wonderful is that? You've got all that to look forward to.
I'm going to hold you to that, Sarah. I'd love to hear that talk on.
I would too. I think that would be quite insightful. I'm definitely still learning. My goodness. It's 3 years, and I really feel like it's only launched this year. It's pretty tricky. And especially when it's so niche. Like, I think the general pediatrician, so Latha, if you're doing general peds, then you're probably on a good path. But pediatric infectious diseases, like, I don't wish an infection upon anyone. So, it's not like I can just go out and kind of cultivate business, so to speak.
Just release an infectious disease.
Release, exactly. Exactly. So I really love my work. So I just, I think the balance at the moment with PhD, kind of not-for-profit stuff, a little bit of media on the side, daughter, that kind of works for me at the moment. And teaching, sorry, Laura, of course.
The most important, most enjoyable.
The most important part of my week.
You were going to talk about your icon, your avatar.
Oh, yes. No, so my husband made that for me. He's a little bit of an illustrator. So he created my little icon, but certainly it's quite cute, and I use it on all my stationery.
I love it.
So I love
fantastic.
That. Yeah.
And sorry, I've got lots of questions, so everyone else can raise their hand to let me know. Cultural competency is something that probably terrifies me, because I feel like by definition I'm incompetent, and yet obviously I work in a fairly diverse community and have for a very long time, but I still feel like this concept is kind of like a hurdle that I just do not know how to contribute. I don't know how to. I don't have a niche culture that I can, not a niche, a culture that I can define myself by, because the Australian culture is just so new, and yet, obviously my background is quite mixed by virtue of being Australian. I'm from all over the place. And so I guess what I was wondering if you could give me any advice on how to take steps into being competent. We've got courses and we talk about it. I mean, I'm not naive to the process, but I still feel incompetent.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely still learning how to do this, but I think cultural competence for me is also just kind of about how, firstly, the systems. I think the systems need to improve. I gave a talk on the weekend about health literacy, and for example, the Royal Children's Hospital, if you drove past that building, it looks like a corporate office block. Like, there is no, if you couldn't read English, there is no way that you would know that was a hospital. So I think, firstly, the systems are so important. So how do you cater to people from diverse backgrounds, whether it's, wheelchair access or different languages or just, yeah, different kind of access points. Like, what do they look like? I think that's a really big thing on its own. In terms of like how you are and how you present with your patients, I think the big thing is around not having any assumptions. One of the big things I learned with the Waterwell project is like, and this is such a simple thing in hindsight, we practice in Australia with shared decision making. And when we talk to patients, we kind of present them with the options. And very early on, I did a Waterwell session with a group of men. I think they were Eastern European. And I talked about shared decision making. It was an Australian healthcare system session we were doing. We were teaching them how to call 000. We were teaching them, what to do when you arrive at your doctor's surgery, how to prepare for a paramedic, that sort of thing. And I said, shared decision making is something that we do. We'll offer you options. So you've got high blood pressure. You're either going to reduce your salt, take this blood pressure medication, do this, and this. And one of them laughed out loud, and then the others started laughing. This was a session of just men, and I was like, "What are you laughing at?" And they said, one of them sort of spoke up and said, "Oh my goodness, like we thought that Australian doctors were just shit at their jobs." And I was like, "What do you mean by that?" And they said, "Well, nobody, like the fact that, nobody was giving us a straight answer. Like we're used to back in our home country that the doctor says you do this and that's what you do. And so when we're presented with multiple options, we just assume that the doctor doesn't know what they're talking about or they don't know what they're doing." And so like, oh my God, like that was a huge revelation. And so this thing around cultural competence, like the other thing that kind of gets me is the DNA stamp, the did not attend stamp. And so we use it in some of our public clinics, particularly when it was, with paper notes, and we'd like get this stamp out and go, DNA did not attend. And I think for me, it's that negative connotation around that means that patient didn't care enough to present to their appointment. And the clinic that I have as my sort of frame of reference was an obstetric clinic that we were doing. It was an antenatal clinic. And these were like very culturally diverse women. And so if you called them up, which we did for some of them, and found out why they didn't come, there are reasons where things like, well, back in my home country, when I was pregnant, I just, pushed out a baby at home. I didn't need to go to hospital. Or 2, I feel well enough that I don't need to see a doctor. Or 3, like, what scan? Like, why do you need to do a scan? Why do you need to do a blood test? No one else has ever done a blood test. No one's ever told me any of this. So I think just those, like, things like that, just kind of, I think you just need to keep an open mind. And I think, we're so ingrained in our culture and the way that we do things that we often forget what it is for someone else of another background who is unfamiliar with our healthcare system, what they're experiencing. Like the other example is giving someone a prescription. Like what the hell does a prescription, like you give someone a bit of paper with like writing on it, how do they know that means that's a medication, that you take it to a place called a pharmacy, they issue you a box, and then you actually take the bit of paper home again? Like that, I just, it's all stuff that we understand because we've grown up with it, or we're surrounded by it. But yeah, how would you know? Sorry, so you were going to say something.
Oh no, I'm suffering from the overwhelming temptation to speak. 2 things: DNA and songs. My favorite DNA story is the problem we had was that when people got on the bus, they were not allowed to get on the bus unless they had shoes on. And so we fixed the DNA problem by providing thongs at the bus stop for free. So people weren't coming to their ENT appointments because grandma didn't have any thongs, didn't have any shoes on.
Oh my goodness.
And there was your final comment triggered another silly story that you were talking about after the DNAs. You made a final comment about keeping an open mind. No, it's gone. It's gone. So we've got 4 minutes left.
The plastic green Medicare card. Like what does a plastic green card mean?
Really?
Yeah, like what is it? Why do I have just bring that anywhere.
I had a patient who I asked her about her hysterectomy, and she was very confident that she had not had a hysterectomy. And it turned out that she was actually using her cousin's Medicare card to see me at the hospital. That was quite confusing for treating her. So you're right.
Fair enough.
Over the years, you accumulate that cultural experience of all the different ways people can present. I'm mindful of the fact that we've got very limited time left and it's very precious. Is there any questions? I'm rethinking my shared decision making after that story. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair that I do get patients that I can see are visibly frustrated with me trying to do shared decision making with them. And I often find myself having to explain the process very clearly that this is what we are doing. Well, thank you so much. Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your time this evening. I can appreciate that it's very precious. And I encourage everyone to tell as many people as you possibly can to share this this recording. And I look forward to seeing you all at our next President's Chat. I hope to continue to hear from women around Australia and some men, not very many, but some men who are going to help us in our leadership journey. So thank you one and all.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, you're very
Sarah.
welcome. Oh, you're very welcome. Yes, thanks, Marjorie, for sharing the recording. That would be really appreciated. I will try and get it up to our website as soon as possible. Please forgive me if it takes longer than I hope.
That's my email address.
Oh, there we go.
And
there's the email. Thank you.
Thanks, Linny.
All right, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Good night.
Guys.
Thank you, everyone. That was really wonderful, Linny. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.